define the 6 A's of housing access, show you the types of data needed to understand rural housing dynamics, touch briefly on housing literacy, education, and collaborative strategies, and finish with a few other things to consider. It's a lot of information, and it's a very short amount of time, so I would like to ask that we wait questions until the end. So the 6 A's of housing access are availability, affordability, accessibility, acceptability, accommodation, and awareness. Availability is the supply of housing units at different price points or quality points. Products and programs to increase quantity and diversity of housing, and the inventory is equal to the supply of housing units at different prices and quality points. Affordability is the balance of housing prices and owner-renter income. Products and programs are used to increase incomes, decrease the cost of construction, or lower rents and mortgages, and have an impact. Here, the inventory is equal to a plotting of area incomes relative to area housing rents and mortgages. Accessibility is the proximity of housing to key community resources. Land use, comprehensive and/or master planning products and programs are key to this. The inventory in this case is a survey of housing demand compared to inventory housing quality. Acceptability is the renter and landlord's perception of each other. Does the nature of supply match the nature of demand? Housing preferences, products and services can form these opinions on what is acceptable and what is not. Inventory in this case equals a survey of housing demand compared to the inventory housing quality. Accommodation. This is the ability to navigate the process of obtaining housing. Navigator products and programs such as concierge and liaison services assist in this idea. Inventory in this case is a review or critique of housing products and programs and messaging. Awareness. General messaging strategies designed to inform the public and providers, which includes education on the other 5 A's. Marketing, communication, and/or education projects and programs help make this a success. And inventory in this case is a survey to measure the level of awareness of products and programs. So let's take a look at the local housing market dynamics. If we look a little deeper at availability, some things to consider would be growth rate. Growth rates, for this data, it helps to determine demand for housing. It is possible to predict the number of households and thus housing needs. And as you can see on here, can you see? Crawford County and Richland County are expected to have declines in their overall growth, whereas the other counties generally not that good of growth, but do still have growth coming in the 2000 to 2020 time frame. By looking at the total population, average size of the households, you can determine the needs of households. As we look at these numbers, you can see that Monroe and Vernon counties have larger household sizes. This is important to note, as that will affect the types of housing needed. Whereas LaCrosse could look at smaller spaces than these 2 counties. We will need larger homes, whether that's apartments or single family, for those 2 counties, for Vernon and Monroe. And you can notice through time, while family sizes have gone down, that bright turquoise line is 2029, that's what it's predicted to be for household sizes. A lot of them aren't changing all that much. Some of them are very minimal as far as how much they go down. This shows that the household sizes are more detailed, or a bit more detailed, and though it's easy to see that household sizes are decreasing, again, Monroe and Vernon show that overall the change is minimal. When you look at the units over time, these numbers reflect the growth rate and will help to clarify clearly define future demands for housing units. Again, these are those graphs that I say are kind of messy because there's so much data on them. Next, you want to look at your housing inventory. Understanding the number of units as well as the costs, will help determine potential types of housing needed for a community. New housing starts also help demonstrate the pressures of housing demand and indicate the shortfall of meeting that demand. Using all of this information will help to identify the gaps that communities will face in the future. You'll want to pay special attention to your population, age, the missing middle, workforce housing, as well as multifamily units. Both the missing middle and workforce housing are determined specifically by income. The missing middle refers to households earning 80 to 100% of an area's median income. Workforce housing refers to housing units that correlate to the incomes of said workforce. In other words, housing costs do not include what the average worker can afford to pay for housing in an area, be it mortgage or rent. There are also other factors that affect what people can afford to pay for housing. Healthcare and insurance is a big factor in this determination. For a large population who can't afford insurance, this will mean more pressure in their housing costs. This will continue to be a factor even when they are finally able to get insurance, because healthcare spending can put a lot of pressure on household budgets. Understanding what the median home value is, as well as income levels, will help determine what the market can bear for housing costs. These needs also determine affordability indexes, which show a percent of income that's paid for mortgages or rent. Comparing median home values to the estimated affordable ownership numbers determined by HUD can illustrate where gaps and pressures exist. Understanding employment opportunities and what economic impact is for families can also help in determining what is or is not affordable development and can help steer housing projects. The ratio of owned versus rented housing is another good indicator of housing development needs, especially when coupled with the types of open units and their costs of rent in an area, building to the economy of an area with less housing demand pressures. One of the most important indicators of the health of housing in a community is the percent of salary. While these numbers don't look too bad, it's those of the 30% or more that would be at greatest risk for housing insecurity. And that's the top 4 lines on the screen. Aging properties also play a role in determining housing needs, as well as the cost of new development strategies. And you'll notice on this one, most of the housing in all of the areas was built in 1939 or earlier. Another factor is the diversity index of a community. There are several data points that go into determining this number from a diverse population, types of homes, and costs of homes, as well as lot types and sizes. It's not just about race or anything like that. It encompasses a great many things. Age of the population is also a diversity indicator. In areas with levels skewed, aging populations can have more pressure for the types of housing both needed and available. Think senior housing versus family housing when looking at these numbers. And the most important ones on that would be your 65 and older, because they're in senior housing or communal housing, and then your age groups between in the mid-20s to mid-30s. Those are your young families. Employment obviously plays a major role in housing, and it's important to understand not only what the unemployment rate is, but also what your biggest sectors of employment are. For example, is it white and blue collar, or a large portion of service industry employment that will impact the housing? Another factor that can indicate housing issues is travel time to work. Looking at how many people travel and how far they travel can be an indicator that people can't afford homes where they work, or that there may be a shortage of homes in the area. The survey can help determine what these numbers really mean and how to go about fixing the problem. Okay, I know it's been a lot of data and there's a lot of stuff on the screen, so the next few slides are going to take it easy on you. Housing literacy can play a large role in helping people find housing that they not only can afford, but that they actually need that actually meets their needs. Understanding what programs are available and offering guidance to these programs is offered by community partners in many locations. But this is something communities could also do if there aren't resources already available. Collaborative strategy is an approach to development and can help ensure that housing needs are met both short and long term. By working with developers, planners, and other key stakeholders, communities can ensure projects are targeting to the real needs of their communities. And finally, other things to consider when working to meet housing needs of your communities would be advocacy, evaluation, reflection, and customization. Only when you incorporate these ideals will the goals become more attainable. I know that was a lot of information